I've always wondered how guitar amps are modeled. What is amp modeling? Well, amp modeling is creating a digital representation of an actual amplifier, including all the knobs, volume, bass, treble, middle, presence, drive, effects, the speaker cabinets, and even the microphones used to record it. You've seen me use amp models in videos, like when I did a breakdown of Electric Sunrise by Pliny using his Neural DSP signature plugin. In fact, Neural DSP makes signature plugins of many of the people I've had on my channel, such as Matthias Assato, Tosin Abasi, John Petrucci, Tim Henson, and Misha Mansour. When I was on tour in Europe last month, I stopped by Neural DSP in Helsinki, Finland to visit my friend Doug Castro, who is the CEO of the company, to learn how Neural DSP models amplifiers. Here's what I found out. Hey everybody, I'm here with Doug from Neural DSP. We are in Finland, in Helsinki, at the headquarters. Doug, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So, show me around.
Sure, well, these are our headquarters. We've been here for about 5 years. Then we needed a bigger office. We had a very tiny one and it was just one space and it was just like guitars and people stacked on top of each other. So now we have a lot more room. So yeah, we can walk around and let's start from the beginning. I mean, we have the sign here. This is Rafa.
Hello.
Brilliant electronics engineer, great guitarist, singer. We used to play in a band together in Chile.
Yeah.
About 25 years ago, he started a message board online.
Okay.
And he wrote articles on how to build your own tube amplifiers.
In Chile, we didn't have tube amplifiers. So
It was hard to buy. They were, for Chile, very expensive, just to have like a Marshall or a Mesa head. Yeah. So he started building his own. He's built his own guitars. He's actually helped me set up all my guitars. He's like, every time I have an issue with a guitar, he's like the doctor. But yeah, so he started this forum, and that's where it became the biggest Spanish-speaking forum for do-it-yourself effects pedals and tube heads. So you had people from Spain and all over South America who would post their projects. I'm working on this new distortion thing, and we would all help each other out. So when somebody designed something or somebody couldn't fix an amp, they would just post there, and we'd all try to help each other. And that's how I learned to design pedals. Actually, I went to university for electronics engineering, but I learned most of it through him and his forum.
Awesome.
We became friends. We played in a band together, and about 10 years ago, when did you move here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I needed somebody to help me with engineering at Douglas because the products I wanted to make were beyond my engineering skills. Okay. And he was like, oh, he's the best guy at this I know. So yeah, I called him and said, hey, would you like to move to Finland? And he was like, sure. And so we got him in. And he's also a sound designer, much like Jaska. Basically the same role. Like they comparable backgrounds, both engineers, understand tube amps in and out. Great guitarist, great ear. So yeah, they're also like helping the algorithm guys figure out how to model the amplifiers and also making sure that they sound and feel as they should.
What are you working on right now? Are you recording something?
So at the moment I'm trying to replicate the Qtron. We have some models for auto filters, but we wanted to have something very specific for the plugin that we're working on. So yeah.
Okay, so this is actually where the modeling is happening, right? That screen?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we have this internal software that we use to put parts together. Some stuff is custom made for this project.
Okay.
Some other stuff is stuff that we have from other stuff.
But that's like a proprietary.
Yeah, it's an internal tool that one of the guys we'll meet later developed from scratch just to make their job easier. Because then maybe everything is right, but there's a specific part that is not working well, then they can just fix that part, send just that part, they'll replace it. It's like, oh, now it's good, or okay, there's something else going on.
Awesome.
Thank you, Rafa.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Well,
okay,
this
what's
is
this here?
Empty room. So we try to automate things as much as possible. So this is actually called Tina.
Okay.
It's a telemetric inductive automated nodal actuator. The amp sits here. The knobs get plugged here. We send like 10 hours worth of guitar signals and all kinds of signals.
Okay.
the robot moves the knobs in a semi-random fashion, it's enough to capture all of the possible combinations of knobs. Because, with tube amps, it's not just like the bass mid treble, it's not just an EQ. Like if you move the bass, the mid response changes and the dynamic response because you're saturating the amp differently. You need to capture all of those sort of combinations. And if you do all the possible combinations, it's hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
And the pots would wear out before you move them also. Some of the engineers had to figure out a way to do it with, a small fraction of the possible combinations and still capture the whole thing. What this allows us to do is that it's all fully automated. So we send signals through the interface, we record them back, and the signals that are recorded back, that's your training data for the machine learning model to do its thing. The cool thing about this is that, it's fully automated. You don't have, PhDs analyzing the schematic and trying to write math that will replicate the behavior. The great thing about that is that you model the actual amplifier, not something off a simulator, on paper, on a schematic. The other cool thing is that you can model things that we might not know about. So with tube amps, for example, the behavior of the output transformer affects the sound immensely. And we don't really understand exactly everything that's going on there because nobody's investing in having research on how output transformers on tube amplifiers work because there's no money in it.
Right.
Here, we don't need to know what's going on. If it affects the signal, it'll be recorded there and it'll be taken into account when we do the model. And I think that's why our models are so accurate, actually. Like they feel and respond just like the real thing.
Now, did you build this
Yeah.
machine here?
All of this we did from scratch, actually. Yeah.
So, how do you even come up with an idea to build something like this?
Out of necessity, because when we're doing the Quad Cortex, we're like, okay, our competitors have hundreds of amplifier models. And at the time we were doing it the old school way, we were lucky enough to have a few world-class PhDs or our own models on the first plugins, like the nameless plugin and everything.
Yeah.
They sounded really good, super accurate. But it took them 3 months to do one. I was like, if we had the money to hire every single person who can do this in the world,
right,
it would still take, a decade of work to do. So we had to automate it somehow, and that's why we actually had the machine learning team sort of come up with a way to automate it.
So you had to actually model how to make this thing, come up with the idea for it, then build it to help you model like you had to actually invent stuff to help you do this faster.
We had to kind of come up with our own tools for.
Amazing. Wow.
There's been a lot of work and hundreds of super talented people working really hard on solving these problems.
It's cool.
Yeah, we have different versions, and this is actually a mobile version of it, full rackable. For some plugins, if you're bottling amps that are too rare and too expensive to ship to Finland, we don't want to take the risk. The insurance cost alone would be a nightmare.
Right.
We'll actually send, a few of the guys you made.
You send it with one of these, right?
Actually, 2 of these. Full redundancy. If something breaks, we have a backup.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've had people, travel for a month and spend a month with the artists and their team, setting up the amps and gathering all the data and everything. So
now, would anyone looking at this know what this is, Doug?
Probably not. I don't know. It looks cool. There's been a lot of work behind the scenes. People just get to use the plugin or the Quad Cortex, but the amount of sort of things we had to solve throughout the years, very complex engineering problems were pretty cool. Well, here we have a little lounge. It's Friday. Actually, there's a Halloween party happening at around 4.
Nice.
So we have a pool table, drinks. This is the guitar repair station.
Okay.
Every time I buy a new guitar, first thing I do is just because I use Enwich signature gauge, 8s. So first thing I do is I plug and make sure that everything works, and then just take it here and restring it and then have fun with it. So
nice.
This is cool too. We have a little shop.
Wow.
But here you can see some of the amps I've modeled throughout the years.
Nice.
The 40 Meshuggah, which is the nameless. Soldano.
That's the actual Soldano plugin. I love that plugin.
Yeah, it's a really nice one. I used it for leads. It's great.
Really great. I've been using it a lot lately.
Some of my old bass amps are here. Mesa Boogie. Hey guys.
Hello.
You're gonna be on camera. Hope you don't mind.
Okay.
This is the machine learning. Well, most of the machine learning team. So this is the special forces, the guys who fix things that nobody else can.
Okay, so what is when you say machine learning? What is that?
Alexi can explain better.
A little bit of everything. No, it's
when you hear about AI, people talk about machine learning.
Look behind you.
So it's a lot of is
you
that
might
calculus. What is it?
It's well, we don't have to get into the specifics of that. We try to kind of work around already existing methods in a way. Like if something already works, I think there's no point messing with it in a way.
Okay.
But if there's some sort of problem that's difficult to solve with traditional methods, or something that we want to improve upon because we're not happy with the quality of traditional methods, that's usually when we're kind of called in. So it could range from something being like, how do we automate this thing so that it sounds better than someone would humanly be able to tune? It could be something like the robot rig, where it's like, we want to make the best possible amplifier model. How do you do it without ever having any human intervention at all? And really approaching it differently, like fully black box and stuff. Or like a feature like capture on QC. Like you wouldn't be able to have some DSP engineer taking phone calls, giving you, tuning an algorithm quickly for you and sending you something. So I think we cover quite a wide gamut in that sense of like of different features, but it's kind of, we're trying to find those like user needs to solve really.
What kind of language do you write these things in?
So the whole stack usually in our kind of development is a lot of the experimentation happens in Python, which is kind of the majority language for machine learning. But then as soon as you want to make things go fast, or you need it to run real-time audio through it, then you need to go to C++ or some sort of like lower level language. We build a lot of stuff custom, which I think is rare in our industry for a team like ours. Yeah, we have some really cool stuff. I think for capture on QC, it's the fact that it's training a neural network on the fly for you. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize that, but that takes a lot of work and a lot of custom stuff to be built. So.
Okay, now, do you understand everything that's on this board?
Maybe I don't.
I mean, Doug, do you understand this stuff here?
No.
Okay, good. Thank God. And everybody plays guitar in here pretty much, or no?
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing to find smart people that actually play guitar too.
Yeah.
Usually they don't go together.
I remember when... Yeah, the Venn diagram is tiny. I remember this is before we founded Neural. I went to an AMSHA and I went to like one of these seminars they do. And there was, I forget her name, but she used to work with Bob Moog and she had a plugin company. And she said that if you find a good DSP engineer that's also a musician or that at least appreciates and understands music, you found like an unicorn, like a gem, you know? And then we have like, dozens of people like that. So it's like we have, 100 unicorns now. So yeah, we're very fortunate. Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks, appreciate it.
This is the DSP and some plugin development as well. Other plugin development happens here.
The screens look similar, like you're writing code for this, right?
Yeah.
And they write in the same languages, Python and C++, same kind of thing?
Mostly C++.
Okay.
Like Python is usually more like oriented to research, but when it comes to products, like what gets shipped is usually C++.
Interesting.
Like more.
I don't even know what that means. I just have heard it and I'm repeating it. So, okay, and everyone plays guitar in here, right? Or plays an instrument, guitar or bass? Just about? Doug, you found smart guys that can play instruments.
Yeah, he's actually a sick guitarist. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, this was the most expensive part of renovating this space before we moved in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a proper room actually. Treated really well. The acoustics.
This is great.
Yeah, the acoustics are great. And we have everything here, so. And actually, we use it to, when we're testing something, you can play loud and it sounds good, but also it's a nice perk because if it's not used for work, people can use it off working hours to do their own stuff. So we have a calendar, Google Calendar, where people can book it, and a lot of people are working on demos and stuff for their own band, so they can mix here or track here as well.
I like that you have a chair that you can play guitar in.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, the handles on my office chair, the left handle is also removed. So,
nice.
Yeah.
I would come in here and just practice. It seems like a great place to.
It gets really warm though. I used to do it, but it gets pretty hot pretty quickly, so I just practice in my office.
Okay, now to your office, Doug.
No, to my office, yeah.
Now, I actually met you online, though. I had used one of the Dark Glass, the Alpha Omega pedal, in a video.
For the Carnival video.
Carnival video,
Yeah,
that's right,
how we met,
for
yeah.
Goliath. Tell me about Dark Glass, and I know that you sold Dark Glass.
To Korg 3
to
years
Korg,
ago.
yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But just tell me about kind of the history of that and how it led into Neural DSP.
Sure. So, well, my background, I'm a bass player originally. I've been playing bass since I was 13. I always loved metal. And I'm from Chile originally. And in Chile at the time, it was really hard to get quality equipment. And even if you could get like a Sansom, like a good bass distortion for bass, it was too expensive. Like, even a $200 pedal, like when I was working in Santiago, my salary was like, $350 a month.
Okay.
So a $200
my
pedal,
God.
like
Yeah.
a Boss pedal is, 10 days of, like, it's 2 weeks of work actually.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it's a big investment. So I was like, oh, I'll figure out how to make them myself. And then that became like a passion of mine, to the point where I actually enjoyed more doing the electronics engineering side of things than actually playing.
And you have your degree in electrical engineering.
Yeah, well, it's technician technically. I wanted to do something fast because I knew since I was 16 that I was going to start a pedal or an amplification company.
Okay.
To make my own gear. If the rockstar, dream doesn't work out, I have a backup career. But then, when I went to school to study electronics, I ended up liking it as much or even more than playing bass. I have very severe ADHD, so it's impossible for me to focus on most things. But once I find something I love, it's my entire universe, my whole existence revolves around that. So I found this passion for electronics, and I just started experimenting and designing. I was building pedal clones for my friends, like tube screamers, and like everybody starts with those. And I was making some extra cash from that. But I wanted to design my own bass and I had this very clear vision for what my bass sound should be. I loved, Jess, Rush, Tool, Iron Maiden, Meshuggah, bands with like this really big but also very clear distorted sound. And even when I tried my friends, pedals, like, at the time, this is in 2009, there wasn't many options. Like if you wanted a bass distortion pedal,
Right.
you had Sunsamp, which is a great company actually. Actually, there's a funny story. When I was designing the microtubes, the first Douglas pedal, for 6 months I hit a wall. I couldn't get it to sound right, and I found Andrew Barda, the founder of Tech 21, who makes the Sunsamp.
Yep.
He invented the Sunsamp. I found his YouTube channel, like his personal YouTube channel. It
Okay.
wasn't like a Tech 21 YouTube channel. It was like Boo 245 or something. But he had videos of testing prototypes of Sunsamps, and I was like, this is Andrew. And, he was one of my heroes because immigrant, founded a company abroad. So I was hitting a wall with the Douglas pedal, and I sent him a message on YouTube. Said, like, hey man, I want to be like you, but my shit doesn't work. Like, it sounds horrible. And he was like, dude, I've been there so many times. Like, keep going. Trust me, I'm sure you'll get there. And he gave me that really encouraging message, which he might regret now because Douglas kind of killed him a little bit. But he was super kind. So anyway, I started designing stuff, and basically I quit my job I was like a repairs technician my professional career working for somebody. I lasted 7 weeks. I was just like, this is not for me. I can't do it. I told my mom, hey, I want to quit to start my own company. It's a company about what's like, no, I'm going to make my own distortion pedals for bass guitar, and it's going to be huge. And she was like, you've always said what you set yourself to really well, so I have no doubts you'll do great. So I support you. And she actually not only supported me emotionally and, gave her approval, but also like financially. She helped me out in the beginning. She would like cover
Nice.
my bills and stuff like that when things were picking up. So yeah, without mom also I wouldn't be here. And dad, who bought me my first bass when I was 13. But yeah, so after a year and a half, I had the first design, like the Microtubes B3K. And I didn't have any other bass pedals to compare it to, but I got it to a point in which just sounding, without comparing it to anything else, I was like, actually, it sounds I think I'm almost ready. So then I called my then bass teacher, who had like a lot of gear. And I also called like a couple other professional bassists that I was friends with who played in really good bands. And they all came over to my living room and brought like, their MXR distortions, like the M80, I think it was, an EBS pedal and a Sunsamp. And we did like A/B tests, and they were like, dude, yours is way better. Like, I thought it was gonna be like, yeah, okay, it's getting there, but the Sunsamp has something that I could like try to, replicate, or maybe the MXR has, better low. And I didn't know what to expect, and even I was like, oh fuck, like, this is actually really good. Like, they also like, this is the best bass distortion on the planet.
Just explain the challenges of having a great distortion pedal, because normally, a lot of the old bass distortion pedals, you get the distortion and then the low end would be gone.
Yeah, that is super tricky. So basically the challenge is that if you want a lot of low end, you will saturate that low end, and then it's a fuzz pedal, which is, it's a different sound. Like
Yes.
I love fuzzes as well, and I've designed many fuzzes, and I love fuzz sound for bass, like Muse. I love Muse, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want a distortion that sounds like that you have like the percussive attack and you cut through the mix, you need to cut all the bass out
Yes.
before you distort it.
Yeah.
For you to get that tight sound. It's kind of like when you use a tube screamer in front of your, rectifier, it cuts a lot of low end, so it gets tighter.
It high passes the guitar.
So exactly. So the distortion gets tighter.
Yeah.
Which for guitar is no problem, but for bass is like the bass is gone. The mid and the treble distorted sounds beautiful, but there's no low end. So then I had to come up with like ways to like artificially bring that back. And what I did, I came up with this kind of like, to me was like, at the time, like very sophisticated and clever. But yeah, I came up with a way to filter like all of the low end out and then attenuate all of the treble after it was distorted. So then the low end kind of like artificially was, and I had a lot of gain. So there was so much output signal that I could still attenuate the treble and mids, but like 30 dBs. And it was still loud as hell if you crank the level knob. But now all the bass was like, 30 dBs louder, but clean, completely clean. So yeah, that became kind of like the Douglas signature sound, which is still at the DNA of all of the Douglas products pretty much. That kind of like distortion engine, which was a Microtubes B3K. I built one. I recorded a video with a friend of mine in Chile, like a quick demo. I sold like maybe 50. And I was like, oh my god! Like, and this was a month before, 2 months before I moved to Finland. So I was working like non-stop to build those pedals, and it was a lot of money for me to relocate here and I made like a few $1,000 from that, which, at the time would have been like a year worth of wages working my day job. So I was like, okay, like people like this, I'll move to Finland. I was an exchange student in Finland in high school and I loved it. So I always wanted to move back. I found a way to move back. And I was like, I'm going to move to Finland and start this pedal company and see what happens. And that's how it'll happen, actually.
Okay, the Alpha Omega pedal, just talk briefly about that, because that's when I first became hip to it. Was that, I don't know how I found out about that pedal, but talk about the Carnival, John's bass sound.
Well, actually, so yeah, I forgot to mention Carnival in my influences because the bass tones in Sound Awake are just like
amazing.
Unlike anything I had heard. I mean, Tool has great bass tones and Rush as well. I'm very influenced by that as a bass player, like, and sound designer. But I think Sound Awake was the first time where I was like, even me knowing how to design bass distortions, I'm like, how are they doing this? Like, how are they getting this tone out of anything? And then through Douglas, I became friends with Jon, the bass player from Carnival. And we actually became like, friends. You drift apart throughout the years, like you do your own thing, but we're still really, we send each other memes, once a month on Instagram. But at the time we became like best friends, like really close. I went to see them play in London 12 years ago, something like that. And then we had drinks and talked like until 5 a.m. And I'm thinking, dude, we should try to capture, like, I don't know if I can, but if you have all the stems and everything from the Sound Awake sessions, I could try to find a way to replicate some, like get very close with analog circuitry like I do with the Douglas pedals. What if you do a product together? I'll pay you like a royalty, like we kind of did a handshake deal. And I think 3 months later, him and his girlfriend were in Helsinki and they lived with me and my then girlfriend for a month. And we worked on it every day for a month and we had a great time doing it.
Now, some of the distortion, Forrester Saville that produced the record, some of the genius. Now, some of the distortion was actually done in Pro Tools after, right? So you had to. That's why you would need the stems to kind of mimic that sound. Correct?
Yeah, and also like a lot of what is perceived as, I think it wasn't Simple Boy, where a lot of what perceive is bass sort of like low end coming from the bass, actually the toms. So even like if you listen to the stems alone, it's like, it sounds so good, everything put together. So that was, well,
when you hear the bass on Goliath, for example, because I have the Forrester, you sent me the stems, you can hear the drums and the bass sound, right? I mean, they're cut together, so.
And he would send me like, and this is why I love and respect him so much, because every song has his own bass tone.
That's right.
And he would send me like, okay, this is the setup. And, it was this crazy, like, huge pedal board, like, like 40 pedals, 30 pedals. Like, he had this Ashdown rig, like, with an 810, and then an SVT with another 810, 8 microphones on one, 7 on the other cabinet, and pedals going through. I was like, holy fuck, that was a setup for Son Awake? I was like, no, that was a setup for Goliath. Simple words, I completely just like, you guys are insane, like doing that for the bass. But I mean, it paid off. Like it's iconic bass tones, really. Like
Iconic.
I think Carnival is one of the most underrated bands
I
ever.
agree.
Like they're
100%.
incredible. I mean, they're pretty big, but I think they should be 10 times bigger.
Yeah. Is the alpha side the Goliath bass tone, or is it the Omega side? What?
Goliath is alpha and Simple Boy is the Omega.
Okay.
Because the Omega side is kind of like the more fuzzier and brutal. The alpha one is a bit tighter.
Yeah.
So the first 2 weeks of that process was, and I never done this before with anyone, so we're kind of just learning on the job. We mainly listened. We're like, he would play through, like he brought his basses and his pedal board. But it was mainly listening. I think once I was like, okay, I think I have the sound in my head, like, you know, I can recall it like in my sort of mind's eye. Then I sat down with a computer circuit simulator, and I think it was like in a day or two, I had like, I think I got it. And then we built a quick prototype on our breadboard. You know, you can take components in and out, change capacitor values. It needs more low end, needs more gain. Just change a resistor, a couple caps, and let's try again. And I think once I had the sound in my head, the whole getting like the core distortion engine for it took less than a week, like a day or two. It was super fast. And then of course getting that to be a mass-produced product took another year.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if I tell you have 5 hours to chop a tree, you might want to spend 4 hours sharpening the axe, and then, you know, it'll be easy. It was kind of like that. It was like we spent the first half of the time we had, and he lives in Australia, right? So if you don't nail it in a month, we're kind of screwed, like, you know. Yeah, it came out great.
And when he was playing through it, you're like, oh, that's it.
Yeah, I was like, and mainly he was like, oh man, this is it.
Yeah.
Because who cares what I think? Like, it's his signature pedal. Like,
Yes.
And we apply the same to Neural, actually. We don't want to make something just that, like, okay, we'll make money because your fans will buy it because it has your name on it. It's like, what's the product of your dreams? Like, Pliny, if you what's the one plugin to end them all for you? The one that you would use for everything, and you would never need to use any other guitar plugin to make music or even to play live. That's the product we want to make. And then it'll be a great product, probably. And if it's a great product and it's done, you know, with that integrity, people will buy it. But this was the same. It's like, would you use this? And he was like, dude, I don't want to use anything else. So it was like, okay, then my job is done. For the design part, at least.
Okay, so you start Dark Glass. When did Neural DSP start then?
Our co-founder, Francisco, was working at Dark Glass at the time in the factory. He's a super bright and hardworking guy, so he became the right hand of the guy who runs the factory, who's now the CEO of Dark Glass, still. And at some point he told me, like, man, like, I love working here. Like, he's a very talented musician. So, you know, we're getting to work making cool music products is a dream for many of us. But I want to work on product development. And you know, he had great ears and everything. At around the same time, I started getting really scared about digital products. You know, Kemper was becoming, this is 2014. Fractal had been around for a few years, but it started like getting traction. Line 6 Helix came out and it was huge. Kemper came out, and with Kemper you could profile things. So I was like, oh, like now people can profile, you know, my bass distortions. I was really concerned that are we gonna get disrupted, because what we're doing now is still quite like, you know, old technology. Like the first Dark Glass pedals, you could have made them in the 80s or the 90s, and you could have, all the technology was available for decades.
Right.
All you do was just put the right values in the right order to make that specific sound. It felt like, oh, like we might be like old news now, and I didn't want to be Nokia when the iPhone came out. Like, you know, you build this, you killed yourself and you risk it all to build this company. It's going great.
Yeah.
You're successful, and then somebody comes with better technology, better features, and then just people go for that. And that's when I realized that, okay, like I should have an answer for this. And that's how what ended up being the Quad Cortex began to shape in my mind. From getting from that point to the Quad Cortex actually existing was maybe 6 years between those. But I started looking at the landscape a bit more seriously and actually buying these devices and trying them out and figuring out what do people love about them, why are people buying it, but also what do people hate about them. There has to be room for improvement here. And at the same time, Francisco, our co-founder, wanted to make plugins. He said, like, there's no Dark Glass plugin, and it's like the standard when it comes to, like, you know, rock and metal bass sound.
Yeah.
But a pedal is, you know, $400. You know, 10 years ago, that was like a lot of money, actually.
A lot of money. Still a lot of money.
It's still a lot of money, but 10 years ago, adjusted for inflation, it would be like 700 today, right?
Yes.
So I couldn't afford this. Like, if I want to get the Douglas sound, I wouldn't use it because I can't afford it.
Yep.
Or, when I was in university, I couldn't afford it. We should have like a cheap plugin. And then he actually found an engineer who could do the development. That was his own initiative.
So how does the development of the dark glass? So you're modeling the circuitry in the pedal. How does that work exactly? Do you model each individual component in order?
Yeah, that was done. I mean, this happened in 2017. So, but what happened was like, okay, like plugins make sense, and I wanted to make something like the Quad Cortex. The first I wanted to do it under Douglas, but then I realized Douglas is known for being a bass company. Just because bass players love us doesn't mean that the credibility will lend itself to their guitarists. In the same way that if your drummer loves Cillian, but Cillian makes a guitar amp, you're going to be like, oh, my drummer loves them. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So then I realized, okay, like it actually makes sense to start a new brand from scratch, start clean. 0 followers on YouTube and Instagram, start from scratch.
Yep.
But you have a blank slate, sort of reputationally at least. Ironically enough, the first product we released was the Darkless Ultra plugin, which is a bass plugin.
Yeah.
But I mean, negotiating the royalty agreement was very easy because I did it. I shook my own hand. I was like, very good. But yeah, Francisco found the engineer for that, and we started selling. And at the same time, I had made some money from Douglas. I had some savings. Douglas had been running well. The first few years of Douglas were a nightmare. Was homeless for a bit even. Like, it was really like rough. But this is a few years later, so things were going well, and I managed to make some decent amount of money. So it's like, okay, I can hire like 3 or 4 people to work on this for 6 months with my savings. So yeah, let's do it. So we did that. We did Douglas Ultra plugin, and I started hiring people like Tan from the machine learning team who used to run it. He was the first hire, and there were a couple more guys. Started working parallel plugins and also doing like the bass research for what then became the Quad Cortex. And then we closed a deal with Mic 14 for the 14 nameless. And the Douglas Ultra plugin was selling well, but I was still had to. It would cover like half of bankroll, and I was still covering half out of my own pocket. Mike 14 wanted some help for something completely unrelated with his amps, and he reached out to me as CEO of Douglas because we had put IR, like an impulse response loader, on our pedals, and he wanted the same on his amps. So that's why he reached out originally.
Interesting.
Like,
so it's just kind of random.
Yeah, it's like, hey, can I license your or can you build it for me and sell it to me? It's like, yeah, sure. Like let's talk. And we started talking about that, and then I told him, hey, like there's no 14 plugins, and actually I just started a plugin company with my friends. Would you be interested in that? And he was like, yeah, what does the deal look like? I was like, I explained, what I have in mind for the royalties and everything. I was like, yeah, man, sounds great. Like, actually, I think it's good because people are making profiles of my amps anyways, and they're selling them without me making any money. So with this, I can at least, people are going to make plugins of it anyway. Might as well have an official one, and, I get compensated for my work. It's like, perfect. So that was a phone call, basically. Sent him an agreement, signed it, and we started working on the 14 nameless. And when that came out, we weren't ready because we thought that, like the Douglas Ultra plugin was doing, we thought we'll add another one of those. Okay, now we're making double money. Great. We just need to do a few more of these. But then Ola Englund made a demo of it, of the nameless. And things just like blew up. It was one of those moments where you're like, I knew then that like, this is going to be huge. Until then, it still felt like a passion project. Mm-hmm. I was kind of like, using all my life savings on a passion project, but just without knowing that it would work out or not. But when that video came out, I don't know, we did like 3 months worth of revenue until then in like an hour. And I was like, okay, like this is huge. And timing is everything. And I believe in hard work and talent and all of that, but a lot of talented, hardworking people never make it because, timing and luck.
That's right.
A lot of people who deserve to succeed fail. Luckily enough, when this happened, I was at an entrepreneurship seminar that a friend of mine invited me to in Estonia. And all of this so I was checking my phone, like Shopify is going crazy, what's going on? And the guy who was sitting next to me was like, pay attention to like, why are you like on your phones now? And then I explained, like, we released a new product and it's doing 100 times what I expected to do. And he was like, okay, show me. And I showed him my phone with Shopify, just like, and you hear like the clink, clink, and it was just going crazy. Like my phone was running out of battery. And he was like, how long have you had this company? It was like less than a year, like 8 months. I was like, and you're selling this much software in 8 months? I was like, yeah. I was like, do you have investors? I was like, no. Let's have dinner tonight. And then he became my first investor ever. Wow. So with that money, I was able to hire like a lot more people and actually get things started. But it was, had I been in a different room or,
Sure.
sitting next to a different, who knows what would have happened, right? So yeah, that was like a very sort of like timing and good luck on top of, risk-taking and hard work, sort of everything coming together. And then they introduced us to bigger investors. And when the Quad Cortex, okay, now we need to hire like...
But you kept the two names separate. The
Always,
Dark Glass
yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, do you own the Dark Glass plugin name?
No.
How does that work?
No,
so Dark Glass is...
Even when I own both companies, Neural still paid Dark Glass a royalty for the plugin.
Okay.
That was just to make things like very clear and muddy. It's kind of like, I didn't, and because also in Dark Glass I had other shareholders, like my sales guy got some shares and then now CEO also. So I thought like it's fair for them that they also get some money out of this. Like, I mean, I started the company, it's Douglas Darkless is kind of named after me. But, I gave you shares for a reason. So I thought it would help me like preserve the peace with my other business partners. So it was just like, it made sense. But yeah, that's a royalty agreement like we have with everyone else, basically. And then after the name, actually this happened before the Nameless. I closed the deal with Mike Fordin, and then I was like, oh, let's do more. But let's do an artist now. So I was like, who's like the best guitarist that I'm friends with? Pliny. So I just called Pliny and said like, hey man, I have a plugin company. Want to make a plugin together? I was like, what would it look like? What's the deal look like? I described it. He was like, sure, send me the contract. And he's also signed it like the next day.
So the Pliny plugin was the real... that would have been what, 2017 maybe, something
No,
like that?
I think it was 2019. This was so many years ago because Douglas Ultra plugin was 2018.
So that would have been right before you must have been working on the Quad Cortex at the same
the background,
time.
yeah, like crazy, yeah. So yeah.
When we hung it at NAMM, that was really, you were debuting the Quad Cortex.
Yeah, like I said, I was trying my best to sound calm and be present with you at dinner, but I was having a full-blown panic attack for the last 5 days, like straight. It was so intense.
Okay, when you released the Quad Cortex, or when you actually presented it, because it wasn't released then.
No, it took us another year and a half to ship it, yeah.
And how many different amp models did you have in it at first?
It wasn't many. Amp models, it was like maybe 20 something, but we counted, because Line 6 does the same thing, like where you count the channels as it's like a different block, right? So with the channels, it was like, we made it look like it was like 50 or 45, but it was like, in actuality, it was like maybe 20 or less. So it was very Spartan when it came out. The Quad Cortex was another, like the 14 Nameless moment. It was like, when we went to NAMM, actually when we did the release video for the pre-order campaign that came out like 2 days before NAMM, and we said like, oh, we'll do 1,000, and they sold out in like a day.
Oh yeah,
I was like,
remember that?
It's a 1,600. Like at the time, it was like maybe 14.99 or something. It's like it's 1.5 million euros, even more in dollars.
Yeah,
it's like almost like $2 million in a day.
Yeah.
So okay, let's do 1,000 more. But then I realized, okay, like we had a prototype that barely worked. Like, I mean, if you moved the block on the grid, it would crash. If you put the reverb before the amp, it would like, that's why like we let people play through it and see it, but only us could operate it, because we knew there was like one way to use it that it wouldn't freeze in the middle of the show.
Right.
So it was like 4 or 5 of us who knew how to use it, and we were working the booth non-stop. Like bathroom breaks were a luxury. Forget about eating.
This.
You had like people just hand you like a granola bar while you're demoing the product for like Premier Guitar or something, and that was so hectic. And yeah, of course units crashed, and it was such a insane time. But yeah, the booth was the busiest booth in the show, I think.
I remember that.
And big stores and everything that we invited to the booth to like, hey, like, come to the booth. Like, we're doing the first 2,000 direct, but then we'll switch to retailers. So we'd love to have you on board. They're like, dude, like our schedule for this whole show has been set up for a month now. So thanks, but maybe let's try to talk later. Once the video came out, they were like, hey, when can I come to the booth? Then I knew, okay, this is gonna be big. But then there was so much pressure to get it done, and I think that was one of the most stressful times of many of our lives. And a lot of the people you met here worked like inhumanly hard to make it happen.
How long does it take from starting if you have a signature model to go? What is a short period of time
For a plugin?
Yeah, for a plugin to a long period of time.
I mean, it can be anywhere from, I would say, 3 months to a year. It depends a lot on the availability of the artist. Every artist is different. Some artists are really, like Jon Beezley, for example, super involved, but also super demanding.
Yes.
But which is great. But he was so responsive, and not only did we have direct access to him, and he replied to every email within 24 hours. Like a day was like a long time.
Yeah.
Like super responsive, super clear. Like, this is what I want. But he also made his, like, Stevie T, who's his producer, amazing guy, and Matty, his tech, available to us. Like, so there were many questions that, like, what voltage bias you set for the
Jon
amps.
is really unusually knowledgeable about his
Yeah.
sound and very particular. He knows exactly what he wants,
Very.
knows how to get it, and really cares about it.
Yeah, like, he was a great example of someone who can be, like, extremely high standards, but also super clear vision and very responsive. So it was getting the product to a point where he was like, okay, we got it. Took a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like, the amps were really hard to model to get perfectly right. We spent a few months just working on the amps. I know that because I had weekly meetings with these people just to make sure they were okay and, like, how are things progressing. But that took a few months. But yeah, once you got there, the product came out great, and it's one of the best-selling ones. But his texts were also, like, very available to us, so they could answer a lot of questions that, you know, like, maybe you don't want to bother Jon Beezley with, like, hey man, like, how do you set up the tremolo? And he might not even actually know, like, a lot of this stuff, like, they worked so much with the text as well.
That's right.
On, like, setting things up. So between Jon and Matty, they knew everything. And Stevie T knew everything on the studio side. So Stevie T did all the cabinets, for example, the rooms, like, for the River as well. So yeah, having both of them sort of involved was huge as well. Made it a lot easier. But that took a while just because the features were, like, really challenging, and nailing the amp's response and sound was super challenging. But that experience of working with them, and on my side, you know, making a deal with him was, like, super pleasant. He's a gentleman, you know. He's just
Yes,
he's an incredible guy. Artists like Pliny is a lot more relaxed, actually. He's more like just plug and play. But no, Pliny was more like, yeah, you know, like, these are the amps that I use, like the amp models that I use when I record. Something like this could be good. For the clean, actually, can we do, like, the preamp of a Dumble, but the power amp of this? And we're like, yeah, sure, we can do whatever you want. And then it was, like, a couple runs of iterations of, like, yeah, what do you think about this? Oh, let's try this. And then it was like, I'm happy with it. And it came out great, like, on the first try. Not the first try, but pretty soon. So it all depends a lot on the artist. Usually the bigger the artist, the more, like, you know, getting a deal done takes forever because there's, like, 18 lawyers and managers and stuff. Jon, for example, Petrucci, he did all the deals himself. Not at any point I talked to a lawyer or a manager. He had his team review, the legal team, to review the agreement. Every time you close a deal with anyone, there's always like, hey, like, can we change this for that?
Yeah.
That's super normal, and it's part of doing a business deal. But all of, like, the terms and, you know, like, all the percentages, everything, it was just him and me talking on the phone. And that took, like, also a few days. Like, it was pretty fast.
So how many different plugins do you have now?
It's around 20, I think. Like, it's yeah.
Okay, so the Quad Cortex, after that year and a half, you got it to where you were mass producing them and sending them out the door and fulfilling all the orders, because all those orders came in at that NAMM show, right? You got tons of orders.
Like 2,000.
Yeah.
It's hard to build 2,000 of. It's a very complex device. Like, it's a computer, basically.
Yeah. How has the technology changed even since then, since 2020 to 2025? Is the technology any different? Are the programs written in any different way?
Yeah, things have changed a lot, actually.
Okay.
Like, for the AMP models, we switched from this. First, it was all, like, white box modeling, kind of like the more traditional approach to modeling things, to more automated with the robots and everything. So there's been, like, a transition period. So, and actually that's why we've done, there's a few amps in the Quad Cortex that you have different versions of.
Yeah.
And it's because, like, the technology improved. So now we have another model that sounds more accurate to the real amplifier. But we also knew that some people might love the first one.
Absolutely.
And if you change the sound, they're like, dude, it sounds different. You know,
That's
like
right.
me as a user, I would hate that.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, let's just put both. So
Just like having different versions of
the same
anything.
amp. Yeah,
or
like
the same guitar even.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have basically
right. They
I
all
have
play
10 of the
different.
same guitar.
You have 10 of the same guitar.
But
they
they'll
all play
feel a bit
differently.
different. They'll sound a bit different,
That's
and you
right.
know, something. It's part of you know being a musician. You want to have different flavors. So, but yeah, things have changed with the hardware. We wanted to make the specs as future-proof as we could, which is why like we had a lot of CPU and we had a lot of room for growing. So there's been a lot of changes in technology, but it's all been on the software side of things for the most part. But yeah, the modeling technology has improved a lot. We have a lot more people now working, so there's like people will come up with like new reverbs and new delays, and like we have a delay guy. We have a guy whose job is to do delays, and he's a delay.
Is he late all the time?
He is.
Sorry.
Jon Beezley made the same joke when I introduced
my
them.
God, I'm
it was like, is he
sorry.
really delayed? I was like, yeah, I mean, he works hard, like, but he arrives at noon and leaves at like at 10 p.m. every day. So he's actually funny enough, yeah. But yeah, so we have people like who are like specialists in reverbs and delays, and we have guys who like all they think about is like, you know, reverbs, like real algorithms.
How does your business revolve around things like the NAMM show, for example, or when you're going to release something new, or if you're going to release a new signature plugin, something like that? Is there a lead time that you will go out to people to announce it, and then how do you do that? How do you roll something new out?
Yeah, so I mean, the influencer marketing is huge in our industry. I mean, like
I don't even know what that means.
influencer marketing.
I'm joking.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, right? Like people like All England were instrumental to us, you know, growing into what we are now with the Nameless plugin, for example. And he's done other demos that also helped us a lot to just so that people are aware that you exist, actually. Like that's when you're a new company and again, we'll start with 0 followers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was huge. So yeah, the for releasing something new, usually the plugin especially needs to be ready a month or like a few weeks before the like announcement date, just so you have enough time for the influencers and, you know, artists to make presets and shoot content around it, so everything's sort of like ready and coordinating all of that, make sure there are no leaks. It's a huge job. Like Don, our chief of marketing, who's also one of my best friends, and he's also in Japan with Francisco now. He's got it to miss this. He's a marketing genius. I mean, he's the best marketing mind in the industry, and I can think of who's number 2. But yeah, when it comes to branding and sort of storytelling and strategy, he's extremely intelligent, talented guy, super hardworking as well. Yeah, so he does all of that, like sort of, you know, cut herding of making sure that all the influencers have it, that reviewing all the content ahead of time, making sure that everything is good and everything. He has a team of like 10 people as well helping him.
Make sure they're explaining things correctly,
exactly.
right?
There's so
Things
much
like
yeah. Yeah, all of that is key. And for hardware is even harder, and you know, it's an even bigger thing, right? Because now you need to have production units ready to go for people to demo it. So yeah, coordinating that and NAMM, it's an Herculean task. So you'd see Dan when like 2 weeks before a release, could be a KARIS update or a new plugin or a new hardware product. He's just like, he must sleep, you know, 3 hours a day, but he's just like working like crazy. But he does an incredible job. So yeah.
One of the things about it when you were telling me about the Quad Cortex, about the way how the knobs work and things like that, that you incorporated knobs in with the pedal, with the buttons.
The foot switches, yeah.
Yeah, and that was, to me, just a brilliant design to do that. And intuitive, because I think it's intuitive for people to use them as opposed to having to move things around on the touch screen in a certain way. And there's a certain intuition that people have about turning knobs. It goes with amplifiers and pedals. Everything is about turning knobs.
Music is largely tactile, right? Unless you're like a techno, you know, producer, like, and you're composing everything on the computer. But if you're playing an instrument, you know, you're touching things and you're turning knobs, or with a few. But in electrical instruments, you are definitely turning knobs.
Turning knobs.
Volume.
If you're on volumes,
volume knob,
volume knobs. If you're on a recording console, you're turning knobs. It's
or faders, yeah.
Faders,
but exactly.
But for the most part,
but
knobs are part of this whole thing.
I think that, and I think that's one of the things that make innovating in this industry so hard, because in, say, like, I don't know, if you're making smartphones, it's almost like you can innovate as much as you like, get things as far from what people are used to And the likelihood of people actually thinking, oh my God, this is genius, is really high. With music, it's a weird combination in which people expect you to innovate and, to push things forward with time. Technology gets better. People expect more from the devices they use, the software they use. But at the same time, if you overdo it, they'll hate it and resent it because it's too far from what they're used to. The heuristic I have is that the closer you get to the instrument, the less room for innovation there is. I mean, look at me, like I'm the happiest day of my life was when I got my 77 Strat. It's like they're arguably better built guitars now that I have some of them, right? But it's not my 70. So, but I think the further you get from the guitar through the cable, the more room there is for you to like actually change things and mix things up. But I think I think with modelers, there's a lot of room for changing things. And companies like Fractal Audio and Line 6, they did a lot of that work of actually making modeling, or Universal Audio as well, making digital modeling synonymous with good sounding. Like in the 90s, it's digital bad, right?
Yeah.
If you want a good sound, if you're a professional, analog is the way. Anything digital, other maybe a delay, was like a big no-no. And yeah, companies that came before us actually did change that, and they took a lot of risks, and so it all builds on top of each other. That being said, I think there are things that as a musician are still more intuitive, like a knob is more. You can do more with a touchscreen, right? Like you can actually tap on the knob and enter the exact value. But dude, like I want more gain. Just like turn the thing to the right.
So, Doug, when you're having something that you step on, okay, a button that you step on, how do you know how durable that can be?
Oh,
like,
we tried it. So
do you have something that will stamp on it thousands and thousands of times?
we did that. A couple of our engineers on like their spare time, and our mechanical engineer Kimmo, also sick guitarist, uses only white Strats, so he's my best friend now. Yeah, I came up with that design actually. Like I drew it like on a piece of paper, and then he like, I sent it to like a shop to build, and it took a few tries to get out the right springs and everything. Actually, the design we had on the NAM units, if you stomp on it too hard, I'm not a mechanical engineer, so it was just me kind of like, pretending to be one. Yeah, I miscalculated something with the spring length, because springs are complex, right? Because when it's fully like compressed, there's a length, and then when it's not, the length changes. So I messed up some calculation there, and the springs were when you compress them fully, they were too big. So they were like too much wire, basically.
Okay.
It was too big a spring. So when you compress the thing, like if you stepped on it, the cap wouldn't touch the ceiling. Oh. So all the force would transfer into the thing. So actually, if you stomp on it too hard, like you would destroy the thing. But I mean, I knew that I could fix that like later on. It was just like for now it works. But yeah, no, then once I got back, and then we brought an actual mechanical engineer, and he was like, it's impressive for an electrical engineer, but for a mechanic, this is like...
Do you say, this needs to be able to be stepped on tens of thousands of times?
So he actually, he built a robot that stomped on it for like, we got to like hundreds of thousands of times.
Yeah.
And the thing still works. So
yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing we did was just like, okay, like it's a thin aluminum chassis, right? So it could bend. So we did a lot of like tests like that. Like one of the tests we did silly, like Francisco, who weighs 200 pounds, I weigh 200 pounds. He hopped on my back, a piggyback. And then there's a video of us, like I'm just like jumping on the thing. And it's still on, like full production in it, and nothing happened. So yeah, no, actually those, almost like the volume knob, which nobody is concerned about, those have, I mean, everything fails in electronics. Like everything is, liable to fail in a physical product. It's a car, a phone, buttons will wear out eventually.
Absolutely.
That's the most solid part in the hardware world. It's like the foot switches, which is the thing that people are more nervous about. They never fail, like very, very, very rarely. Tens of thousands of units, we might get like very few cases a year. It's like it's virtually a 0% failure rate on those. Other things like jacks will just wear out, like you might get a bad batch of, connectors for something. That happens way more often than the actuator. So.
Okay, so you might not know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it because I was thinking about this. The old Tom Schultz Rockman, you remember those things?
Yes.
Were those digital?
I think they were analog.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, Rafa he knows everything about Tom Schultz. And actually, I first knew about Tom Schultz through a video of yours. and his background in engineering and you know,
Yeah.
it was like,
MIT.
I became a fan of his actually. Not just the music is amazing, but what a formidable individual, right? What a great human being. I think the distortion and everything was analog. Yeah.
Interesting.
Don't quote me on this, but we can double check. Rafa knows everything. He
I'd
has
love
one
to
actually.
know about that because
Yeah.
I was always curious. I think of the thing and I always think, was that one of the first digital things or is that not even digital? But
I'm like 72% sure it's digital. Or maybe higher. I would say 80%.
72%.
I was 80% sure that it's all analog. But Rafa has bought several, and he has one in his office, I think.
Doug, I really appreciate it. It's been great coming here. I really you have this is fantastic what you built.
Thank you
Really
so
cool.
much. No, thank you. Thank you for coming. It's been, like I said, 90.
You've invited me many times. You're like, Rick, anytime you want to come to Finland.
And finally it happened. I mean, of course, like it's a pleasure to have you here, but I thought like you live in why would you ever end up anywhere remotely near in Finland? Now the stars aligned
There you
and
go.
it happened. So I'm very, very, it's an honor to have you here. Like I watch your videos now. When I'm too tired to practice guitar, I usually end up watching one of your interviews. I was watching the Wolfgang I watched, I think yesterday night, like before I went to bed. I was like, oh, you know, I'm too tired to play guitar, so I'll just, you know, eat something. And I don't watch really Netflix anymore. If I'm not playing guitar, I'm usually watching either like Trick Ray, how to, you know, alternate pick faster or
Right.
cleaner, or your interviews. Like it's a huge honor to be interviewed by you, and for all of us as subscribers and fan of yours, like to have you here is a huge honor. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks,
Thank you,
Doug.
man.